بسم الله الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما اللهم افتح إلينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام ونعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So in the previous session, the one before the last session, we were doing the section on akhlaq al-hasana wal akhlaq al-qabiha, good characters and bad characters. So we didn't actually complete that. I want to go through that. In the following section, he's going to talk about form and meaning, and then he's going to talk about the marvels of the heart, and then he's going to explain a beautiful concept, how the heart is a mirror. So this is it's a bit intricate, it's a bit complicated. There are a few sciences here. So just bear with me as I go through this section, and we'll go step by step. So if in any case there are any concerns or questions, things that are not clear, just do stop me and ask where you need some clarification. Because he's going to talk about dreams, he's going to talk about seeing the other world, and how an individual has access to alam al-malakut through his dreams. So just to backtrack a little bit, under the section of good character and bad character, he said, وَقَدْ أُمِرَ ابْنُ آدَمْ بِأَنْ يَكْشِفَ ظُلْمَ الْجَهْلِ بِنُورِ الْعَقْلِ. The son of Adam was commanded to unveil the darkness of ignorance with the light of the intellect. خَوْفًا مِنَ الْفِتْنَةِ, out of a fear of fitna. Fitna is really it is the thing that you want to avoid most in your interaction with the created world, whether that is with non-human entities or with fellow human beings. The fitna is what you want to avoid the most. It is the thing that once it is ignited, it can spiral out of control completely, and you have no choice but to wait until it runs its course, however long and however damaging that course might be. In order to avoid that portion of fitna, the son of Adam was commanded to ensure that he uses the intellect, he uses his mind to unveil the darkness of ignorance, which is constituent of elements like misunderstandings, ambiguity in speech, misconceptions that can arise, right? These things are part of ignorance, because if there's a misunderstanding between what you said and what the other person heard, then the other person is in ignorance of what reality you are hoping to express. That can result in this fitna, and then that fitna will compound, and the conflict that will arise from that is just going to create more harm between the two of you. This component of seeking disambiguity is very, very important, just to ask, what do you mean by that? What exactly are you talking about? And it's not only limited to the conversation, it also extends to just general interaction with individuals. Because somebody can behave in a certain way that you find offensive, or you find insulting to you, or you find damaging to you, but instead of clarifying the matter with them, you let it stir internally. That's going to create more fitna, because now your outlook towards them will change, and they might be ignorant about it. They might not even know that what they did was wrong. They might not even know. In fact, they will then have a perception about you that you're the one who is, attacking them, because now your attitude towards them has changed. And so what's happening now in this interaction is fitna is being generated and created. And the moment it comes out into the open, all the other entities who are shayateen al-jins wal-ins, are going to start exploiting it to the hilt. They will keep on adding more salt to the wound, just to make it more and more bitter until there is a complete discord. As the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا وَلَهُ شَيْطَانٌ وَلِي شَيْطَانٌ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَعَانَنِي عَلَى شَيْطَانِي حَتَّى أَسْلَمَ. Everyone has a demon. Even I had a demon. Even I have a demon. But Allah has enabled me to overcome him, and he has submitted. وَكَذَلِكَ الشَّهْوَةُ وَالْغَضَبُ. Likewise, the shahwa and the ghadab. يَنْبَغِي أَنْ يَكُونَ تَحْتَ يَدِ الْعَقْلِ. They have to be under the command of the intellect. فَلَا يَفْعَلَ شَيْئًا إِلَّا بِأَمْرِهِ. So that they do not do anything except by its command. فَإِنْ فَعَلَ ذَلِكَ صَحَّ لَهُ حُسْنُ الْأَخْلَاقِ. If you do that, then the resultant will be beautiful character. وَهِيَ صِفَاتُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. And these are the qualities of the, and these are angelic qualities. وَهِيَ بَذْرُ السَّعَادَةِ. And this is the seed of happiness. This is the seed of contentment. وَإِنْ عَمِلَ بِخَلْفِ ذَلِكَ. But if you act in the opposite manner, فَخَدَمَ الشَّهْوَةَ وَالْغَضَبَ. And you subject the intellect to the command of the shahwa and the ghadab, وَصَحَّ لَهُ الْأَخْلَاقَ الْقَبِيحَةِ. The resultant will be vile, repulsive, insolent, bad character. وَهِيَ صِفَاتُ الشَّيَاطِينِ. These are the demonic qualities. وَهِيَ بَذْرُ الشَّقَاءِ. And these will be the seeds of your damnation. فَيَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُ فِي نَوْمِهِ كَأَنَّهُ قَائِمُ مَشْدُودَ الْوَسَطِ يَخْدِمُ الْكَلْبِ وَالْخِنْزِيرِ. This will eventually even manifest in your dreams as if you are in submission to the dog or the pig. The extremity of that manifestation will be that you will actually see yourself prostrating to a dog or a pig, depending on which one of the two had actually overcome you. Whereas where the dog is the ghadab and the pig is the shahwa. Or you will find something of a similitude in your dreams, wherein you will either be seen or you'll see yourself submitting to your desires, or you'll just see yourself indulging uncontrollably, or you will find yourself in your dreams just filled with rage and just havoc and just creating turbulence all over. This is you in your inward reality, your true reality that is being unveiled to you. He's going to talk about that bit in the next section. وَكَانَ مِثْلُهُ كَمَثَلِ رَجُلٍ مُسْلِمٍ يَأْخُذُ رِجْلًا مُسْلِمِينَ يَحْبِسُهُمْ عِنْدَ كَافِرِينَ. It's like the man who is Muslim and he imprisons his own Muslim brothers and surrenders them, betrays them to the kafirin. This is the similitude of you subjecting your aql to the shahwa and the ghadab. It's like you've betrayed your Muslims to the kafirin. فَكَيْفَ يَكُونُ حَالُكَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ إِذَا حَبَسَتَ الْمَلَكِ وَهُوَ الْعَقْلِ تحت يد الشهوة والغضب وهما الكلب والخنزير. So what's your state going to be like on Yawm al-Qiyamah if you betray your aql, if you betray the king, which is the aql, your aql, to the shahwa and the ghadab, and they are just the dog and the pig? What's your state going to be like? Because that's the similitude. And so he says, وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْإِنسَانَ فِي صُورَةِ ابْنِ آدَمَ الْيَوْمِ وَغَدًا تَنْكَشِفُ لَهُ الْمَعَانِي فَتَكُونَ الصُّوَرُ فِي مَعْنَى الْمَعَانِي. Know that the human being is in this Adamic form today. This form that is unique to us, of this unique jaw structure and walking on 2 feet. And this is the Adamic form that distinguishes from the rest of the animalistic creation. So today you are in this outward form, this is what you are. But tomorrow your true reality will be unveiled. The meaning inside you will be unveiled. And then you will take on the form of that meaning. So if you embellish the dog character or the pigly character, then that's the form you're going to take tomorrow. فأما الذي غلب عليه الغضب فيقوم في صورة الكلب. For those who were defeated by their ghadab, they will take on the form of the dog. وأما الذي غلب عليه الشهوة فيقوم في صورة الخنزير. And those who are defeated by their shahwa will take on the form of the pig. لأن الصورة تابعة للمعاني. Because the form follows the meaning. Form follows function. That's a principle. The human body is a perfect exemplification of that. The kidneys have that form because that's how they function. They function that way. That's why they have that form. The lungs have that form because that's how they function. So the function takes on the form. The meaning of the object is what gives it form. So if something is beautiful inside, then it will manifest beauty on the outside. And if something is ugly on the inside, it will manifest ugliness on the outside. And this is something that we notice in people who are abhorrent in and of themselves. Their outward appearance is also equally abhorrent. They don't have that light, that pleasantry, that even when you just see them, you don't even want to be around them, right? This is the inward manifesting on the outward. وإنما يبصر النائم في نومه ما صح في باطنه وإنما عرفت أن الإنسان في باطن هذه الأربعة فيجب أن يراقب حركته وسكنته ويعرف من أي الأربعة هو. So what the sleeper sees in his dreams, that what he's seeing is his true reality, is his inward reality. The dreams are not just movies that are playing in your mind. They are expressions of what is your inner reality. They are a window into your heart. What's really manifesting in there, that's what you see in the dreams. And so now you know that the human being, his inner reality is in one of these four categories. And so it is important that you are constantly and vigilantly observing in your tranquil states or your turbulating states, because you're either one of the two. You're either still or you're in motion. You are either alone with your thoughts, just relaxed, or you are in a circumstance. Something is happening. You're working, you're going, you're moving, you're dealing with something, whatever it is. So you're either turbulating or you are in stillness. It's important that you observe yourself in any of these states so that you can understand which of these four categories do you fall under. And this is a constant observation that you have to keep on examining yourself in every moment of your existence, because the heart is always changing. That is the taqallub, the heart is changing, qalb, it's turning over and over. So and you can't escape that. You're always going to be in motion, or you're always going to be doing something, whether you're still or you're moving physically. It's important that you observe yourself in every one of those moments, because in one moment you might think, I'm good, I did something good, right? So I'm taking on the malaika category. And then in the next moment you end up lapsing. If you take one for granted and apply that as, that's the standard, and take it for granted, this is what I am, then you will be deluding yourself when you are actually in a state of submitting to your desires or your anger. So he's saying it's important that you keep on self-reflecting. In every moment, every action that you do, you self-reflect and self-evaluate, was this the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Because it will then manifest in adverse ways which you don't want. فإن صفاته تحصل في قلبه وتبقى معه إلى يوم القيامة. Because these qualities that manifest will remain with you until يوم القيامة. So if you assumed that you are good and then you do bad things like giving into your anger all the time, and you are ignorant about that and you don't observe yourself and evaluate yourself, then these will remain with you until يوم القيامة. And likewise, the good qualities will also remain with you until يوم القيامة. وإن بقي من جملة الباقيات الصالحات شيء فهو بدر السعادة. So if anything of the good qualities, if anything of the righteous actions that you do, if anything of those remnants remain with you, then they will enable you to sow your seeds of felicity, of contentment. And likewise, وَإِن بَقِيَ مَعَهُ غَيْرَ ذَلِكَ فَهُوَ بَذْرُ الشَّقَاءِ. Those bad aspects, those bad qualities, anything other than that, if those remain, then those are going to sow your seeds for your damnation. وَابْنُ آدَمَ لَا يَنْفَكُ وَلَا يَنْفَصِلُ عَنْ حَرَكَةٍ أَوْ سُكُونٍ. The son of Adam is not separated, is not removed from this constant cycle of peace and turbulence, peace and turbulence. This is a constantly occurring thing. So if you remember back to the ayah that we looked at, where which essentially summarizes all of creation and the state of this world of our being here. It's always a cycle of night into day. One is always seeking the other in rapidity. So there's always going to be turbulence and then moments of peace and then moments of turbulence, right? You're not parted from that. It's a constant thing. وَقَلْبُهُ مِثْلُ الزُّجَاجَةِ. The heart is like glass. It's very fragile. It can easily break. If it keeps on going through this and it's not controlled or it's not strengthened, it's going to break. It's going to crack. It's going to catch dirt if it's not cleansed every now and then. وَأَخْلَاقُ السُّوءِ كَالدُّخَانِ وَالظُّلْمَةِ. The bad qualities, bad characteristics, these are like smoke and darkness. فَإِذَا وَصَلَ إِلَيْهِ ذَلِكَ أَظْلَمَ عَلَيْهِ طَرِيقَ السَّعَادَةِ. If they reach the heart, then the path to contentment will be darkened. It will become obscure. You will not be able to see which way you need to go to find your contentment, to find that tranquility that you're looking for. وَأَخْلَاقُ الْحُسْنَى كَالنُّورِ وَالضَّوْءِ. The good characteristics are like light and clarity. فَإِذَا وَصَلَ إِلَى الْقَلْبِ طَهَرَهُ مِنْ ظُلْمِ الْمَعَاصِ. من ظُلْمِ الْمَعَاصِ. If they reach the heart, the good character, the good qualities, they will purify it from the darkness of disobedience. كما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, as the Prophet said صلى الله عليه وسلم, اتبعي السيئة الحسنة تمحوها. Follow up a bad action, a bad deed with a good deed because it erases it. وَالْقَلْبُ إِمَّا مُضِيئًا أَوْ مُظْلِمُ. And the heart is either enlightening or it is darkening. It is either illuminating or it is falling into darkness. Remember, you can't be one and the other at the same time. You are either in a state of knowing or in a state of ignorance. وَلَا يَنْجُو إِلَى مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. And the only person who is saved is the one who brings to Allah a sound heart. And that's that ayah in Surah Ash-Shu'ara that we looked at before. I believe it was in the second session or the third session, in Surah Ash-Shu'ara, ayah number 88 and 89. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. On that day, nothing is going to save you, not your wealth, nor your children, no legacy, quote unquote, that you left behind for yourself, except the one who comes to Allah with a sound heart that is free of blemishes and the diseases that bring it down. Is there any question up until there?
Yes, I'm gonna start with the last thing you said. So the only person that will be saved is one with a sound heart, and you said that your children and your material's not gonna save you. What about like Sadaqah Jariyah? Like say you died with an unsound heart, but you left Sadaqah Jariyah, you left children that will make dua for you. Will that kind of like clean your heart, even though you're already dead?
That's what it's meant to do. The idea that you leave behind, you nurture your children well enough for them to do good actions and they repay you back by doing Sadaqatul Jariyah, that constantly helps towards cleaning the remnants that you left behind. But that's insofar as your actions are concerned. The real deal here is as far as the state of the heart is concerned. Because you can have a wealthy person, very rich, who has accumulated his wealth through greed without really even knowing it, that he was just greedy about it. And yes, he left behind, he built mosques and he built madrasas and all that, sadaqatul jariyah. His children, they continued that work and so on. All those will help accumulate towards the individual himself and help cleanse. But at the end, the heart is still going to be questioned about this particular disease. And the two will be weighed. Which one was heavier than the other? Because if the greed was heavier than the actions, then the actions are overwhelmed. This goes back to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. The actions are contingent on the intentions. What did you actually intend? What was in the heart that led you to that action? So the actions are actually judged based on the intentions.
Another thing, I just wanted to mention that you said if the bad qualities remain in soul after death, you're going to manifest that in the afterlife. So this kind of got me thinking about, how the Hindus think about reincarnation, like reincarnated as different animals, you get bad. So and then right now we just said with it's gonna be weighed. That reminds me of the ancient Egyptian thing of the weighing of the mat. So it seems like all these traditions and stuff, they have a little bit of the truth, but then surrounded by falsehood.
Yeah. Most of the older civilizations, they had some knowledge of the heart and this idea of the afterlife, because this was a thematic theme that all the prophets came with. They explained Tawheed, they explained what is prophethood and prophecy, and what entails the akhirah. So the spiritual portion has always been there. For example, in the Chinese language, the word or the symbol for what's known as Shen, which is the symbol for spirit, also includes the characters for heart, for mind, for thought, to see, to observe, to intend. So they had knowledge of a little bit of this concept. The thing about reincarnation, resurrection is more of a semantic thing, which is based on supposition. So it's reincarnation implies that there is no eternity of an afterlife. You just come back to the same world and you live out another phase. Well, resurrection entails that this phase ends and another one continues after that. Semantics really when it comes to that, but the concept is the same, that you do bad in this world, you will be raised as bad in the other world.
What you said about dreams, subhanallah, it was like just last night it was shown, like you explaining it now, it's just like the other Monday. It was like what I needed to hear is coming. It's like,
he's talking about that in the next section, right? Like this right next section here, the first paragraph is talking about that.
Really, it is okay, so that, so you're gonna explain that, but one more. Oh, the fitna. That's why I didn't open my video yet, because I was thinking of what if, since me explaining what I'm doing this for, what my education was, since it wasn't perfectly clear and I was going through tangents and stuff, I was thinking about what if I post this and then all the people will see it, and then what if they think that I'm just doing this for attention, or all these start coming in my head, and if my attention isn't made clear out there, then I don't want all this fitna to start in people's minds about what they think of me, and hasad and all this, and I'm just like, that's kind of the main reason why I didn't want to post it, because I was like, I need to figure out how to transmit the information clearly.
Well, that's actually an interesting point, and maybe I'll touch on that a little bit. The first stance that you would probably take is to, what's your intention behind the whole thing? Because when it comes to the public sphere and doing righteous deeds in the public sphere, there's a very delicate balance here, that you could fall into what's known as riya, right? Showing off, and that just nullifies all your deeds. So when it comes to knowledge, it's very delicate because people don't really understand where exactly they stand. Do I want to know, because you're going to teach, right? So foremost, you need to know what is my objective or my intention of knowing. Do I want to know so that others can know what I know? In other words, do I want to, or do I want to know so that I can teach others what I know and benefit them? Or fall into the side of Riya, whereby do I want to know so that others can know that I know? And the difference between those two statements in English is just one letter, is the difference between the W and the A and the T in the word that and what. Do I want to know so that others can know that I know? Or do I want to know so that others can know what I know? That really builds your foundation and sets you in a particular direction. The second aspect there is to make sure that what you have in terms of your knowing is a certainty. And that's a certainty that you have validated, you've authenticated, you have looked and made sure that your argument or your presentation is built on the foundation of the religion, and that it is coherent with other truths as well. So that will give you some sense of certainty about what you're talking about. Because if you feel like, and this is your self-evaluation, if you feel like this is something I'm uncertain of, if I end up coming out and giving it into the public sphere, then I'm just going to end up creating more confusion instead of benefit. And that's going to be on me. It's going to be my responsibility. So the fact that a lot of people do this, they just come out and start, speaking on matters that they don't have any knowledge on, and they don't realize the damage that they're creating. And that's a big thing, because you're not going to be able to see the damage. See, your posting will be on wherever it might be, whichever sphere it might be. You don't know what's going on the other side. And even if you're speaking in a live audience, for instance, what transpires within that environment is different from what's going to transpire outside. You don't know what's going to happen out there. So you might be actually contributing to the fitna. And so this is why the intellect is the one that makes a conscious involvement here to evaluate and see, am I just speaking out of a desire to speak? Am I speaking because I want some sort of recognition? Am I certain about what I'm going to be speaking? If I'm not, then I need to revisit. I need to make sure that I know exactly what I'm talking about, and that I have checked and double checked, I have asked, I have confirmed that this is a truth, and therefore now I'm able to present it. Right? That also eliminates the common fallacies that we fall under that create more fitna, wherein other people who are reluctant to accept your point of view will end up attacking you personally instead of analyzing the argument that you're making. And so you see, that also creates another fitna, because they attack you personally and then you feel offended and then you become an enemy to them. So now, instead of creating a bondship of truth, you've ended up sowing, discord between the two. This is how all the sects in our tradition got formed. It's because one side's argument just wasn't reconciling with the other side's argument. And even though one side maybe was able to invalidate the other side's argument, they took it more on a personal level instead of an intellectual level, to also say, okay, I'm wrong, actually, you're right. You pointed out my mistake, let me fix that. Again, it goes back to self-reflection to say, I made a mistake, instead of saying, oh, you're just criticizing me because you hate me, So yeah, this is something that you do consciously, not as an automaton. Just because you have the PhD doesn't mean you're right all the time. You can be wrong. And that's something that you accept beforehand, before you go into the circumstance. Because you're in a position now whereby the event has not yet happened. Now you're anticipating the event occurring, but now you're also intellectually anticipating the possible outcomes from that event. So you're actually being intellectually involved with your own pursuit, rather than doing it on a whim.
I thought about, am I doing this hastily? And I'm like, I shouldn't do this hastily. I should take my time. And just for the fact that I took a picture of the map and sent it, I'm like, oh, let me just do everything now. I'm just like, why would I do that? Like that, I'm not thinking, is this my desire just to do it, or is it my intellect thing? I'm just like, let me pause it. So even just me unsure, I was just like, yeah, I have to consolidate my niyyah, and then I just stopped it. So
yeah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Okay, so now he's going to talk about the marvels of the heart, and this is where it gets a bit tricky, so bear with me, I'll walk you through it. It's a very short section, but he's packed so much into it that it took me a while to actually break it all down, even for myself when I was studying it. So he says, "I'lam anna lil qalbi babaini lil ulum." Know that the heart has got two doors to the sciences. Now, sciences here, he's using it in the traditional sense of the word science in English, coming from Latin scientia, which would mean to know. So he's talking about the knowing itself. There are two doors to acquiring knowledge. This is a very, very crucial concept, because in our modern sense, contemporary academics, they are they are adamant about this. They're stubborn in this regard, that knowledge only comes from the sensory world. If you do not have empirical proof about anything, that's not knowledge. It's just a fantasy. So in that aspect, they have also a lot of people have ended up disregarding religion entirely, because religion is a revealed knowledge. It is not an ideology. It is not some philosophy of sorts. It is not man-made, and it is not of this world. Religion is revealed unto mankind, and it is not something that you can give empirical proof about, that religion is from God. How do you prove that? You only prove that through reason, but you can't give an empirical proof, an experiment of sorts, or a formula of any kindness to prove that this is truth, right? According to their standards, we affirm that religion is something that we feel and we sense and we have a belief in, all right? And then we can prove that even to ourselves. Different discussion, that's going into theology. But the point here is that what he's saying is that there are two aspects to acquiring knowledge. Wahidun lil ahlam. The first of them is through the aspect of dreams. Ahlam, which is dreams, comes from the root word halama, which means to dream. It also means to be forbearing. And halim is a dreamer. Hilm is intelligence. So there is a correlation between dreams and intelligence. In other words, what you're seeing in your dreams is you're seeing with the heart. You're seeing with intelligence. You're not seeing because it's a movie playing in your head with pictures and whatever random stuff happening. There is a reality to what's transpiring in your dreams. وَالثَّانِي لِعَالَمَ الْيَقَظَةِ. The second one is what you experience in your wakeful state, your conscious state. So what you experience in your sleep and what you experience in the wakeful state. This is different from what he explains in the Ihya when he categorizes two branches of knowledge, because that's where he's looking at knowledge epistemologically. Here he's referring to knowledge of the kind that you use to acknowledge your being, to be aware of your existence, and to make the right decisions as you move through this life, right? That other knowledge, he's looking at it more in terms of epistemology. There are two branches. And he says, ilm mu'ammala, ilm al-mukashafa. Knowledge that is demonstrative, like your sciences, right? Empirical proof and so on and so forth. The outward sciences. And then knowledge that is revealed, which comes from revelation. Knowledge that is unveiled unto you. So for this aspect of the wakeful knowledge that you receive, he says, وَهُوَ الْبَابُ الظَّاهِرُ إِلَى خَارِجِ. It is the external door that opens out to the outward world. This is your wakeful state. You are awake. You're seeing the outward reality. فَإِن نَامَ غَلَقَ بَابَ الْحَوَاسِ. So when you sleep, the door of the senses is closed. When you're asleep, your senses are not awake. Your senses are not active. You're not seeing with your physical eye or smelling or hearing or touching or feeling or whatever. Your senses are closed off when you're asleep. فَيُفْتَحُ لَهُ بَابَ الْبَاطِنِ وَيُكْشِفُ لَهُ غَيْبٌ مِنْ عَالَمِ الْمَلَكُوتِ وَمِنَ اللَّوْحِ الْمَحْفُوظ. So in that state of sleep now, in your dream state, what is being opened to you is the door of your inward reality. And what's being revealed to you is that of the unseen, which is from the Alam al-Malakut. So this is the Alam al-Mulk that the senses interact with. And you understand Alam al-Mulk through your senses. But Alam al-Malakut, you do not interact with through your senses. So if somebody tells you that he's able to see the unseen in front of him, he is seeing things that you cannot see, that person is lying. Right? Fortune tellers, our neo-Sufis and esoterics who claim that they're able to see unseen entities around them. Maybe they can, maybe, I don't know, because I can't see them. But here's the thing. This is how the human being is. If you're talking about Alam al-Mulk, your senses can see Alam al-Mulk. But when you're talking about Alam al-Malakut, your senses cannot see Alam al-Malakut. Your physical eyes cannot see that. So this is what's being revealed to you in your dreams. What's coming in from what the reality of the Alam al-Malakut and what's in the Lawhil Mahfudh, the great tablet in which Allah, when He created the pen and the tablet, He instructed the pen to write and the tablet to receive the writ. And everything that He wanted to bring into creation and into existence is documented in the Lawhil Mahfudh. Now with the dreams, it's a very sensitive science because there's nothing hard or tangible that you can deal with. Everything that occurs in the world of dreams, the world of dreams is what the scholars call Alam al-Mithal. It is the world of examples, of allegories, of metaphors. So everything in the world of dreams is metaphoric. It has to be interpreted. Dreams cannot be taken literally. And when it comes to interpretation, there are degrees of interpretation. Some interpretation is simple. It's closer to literal and you can easily interpret it. And some interpretation is very complex. And so interpreting dreams should never be done. In fact, the ulama say it's haram to interpret dreams if you don't have that knowledge. And interpreting dreams is not just based on a theoretical understanding of the interpretation, it's also dependent on the spiritual state of the individual, the hal of the interpreter, because it is likewise revealed or unveiled unto the interpreter's understanding of what the dreamer is seeing, right? Now, dreams are basically of three categories. There are dreams that are ru'ya salihah. These are true dreams or good dreams that come from Allah. And you just know that it's a true dream. It doesn't require any, complex understanding of whether or not it was or it wasn't. You just know it. You just sense it. You feel it. It's a feeling in your heart that you've received something of a revelation of sorts. Not revelation in terms of Quran, but revelation of sorts in your heart. Allah has revealed something to you, whether it's about yourself or somebody else or something of the like. And then there are dreams that are on the complete opposite end of that spectrum, which are shaitani dreams. These are like those horrific nightmares where the jinn, they cast these images. Because in the Alam al-Mithal, when you're in a dream state, you are vulnerable. Your senses are not there to protect you anymore. So it's easy for the shayateen to, come in between and to confuse you. Because in the world, when you're awake, your senses are a protectant as well. And you're receiving information from your senses. So it's difficult for the jinn to manipulate material right in front of you in real time to delude you. They only are able to delude you in between the two, right? So if you go to sleep and your hal is not protected, for instance, you don't pray your salah, you're out, you're in a janibi state, right? Janaba state. Your physical hygiene is not, whatever, your nails are long and dirty and you're just physically filthy. These are all attracting components to the jinn, right? So your state is in a negative energy, so to speak. And then you go into the dream world, it makes you a very easy target. But if you are in a pure state, a refined state, you prayed, you did your adhkar, you did your dhikr before going to sleep, you went to bed with positive thoughts as well. Those are all protectants in the dream world. The third category, and this is the most common and the broadest of all, these are the dreams of the self. These are what's coming out of your subconscious state. Because when you're awake, you are conscious. When you go to sleep, you are unconscious or subconscious in that regard. These are the dreams that are, most of these dreams are self-healing dreams. It's the self reconciling with itself as to what it experienced during its wakeful state. So in your wakeful state, if you are, bombarded with information, for instance, you are studying really hard, or you did a lot of work, you overworked yourself. Now in your dream, you're going to sleep, all you're seeing is numbers and digits and all these things. It's sort of, this is your self trying to reconcile all the information it received during the day, because the mind needs to filter out what is relevant to the body and the soul. It needs to get rid of stuff that it's not relevant for its being, for its well-being. So the self is trying to heal itself. A lot of the things that you experience in your life, I'll give you an example. This happens, I've spoken to many who they were like smokers, for instance, people who are addicts, right? And then they gave up their addiction. Addiction in that regard was was fueled by shahwa, by a desire to be in that state of euphoria or whatever. A lot of them actually see themselves in their dreams after they've given up, they've quit. They see themselves taking those drugs. They'll see themselves smoking, or they'll see themselves drinking, or they'll see themselves, taking those drugs. They see themselves, this is the soul trying to reconcile the desire that you deprived yourself in a wakeful state. There was some sort of a trauma taking place because yourself wanted it, but then you pulled back and you forced it down. So it's sort of rebelling. The soul is it's healing itself in that process. These are some of these kinds of dreams that you get. Are you with me so far, or have I completely, lost you guys?
Well, that last part you said made so much sense.
Okay. So, and this is what you will see also if you are, let's say, you've got a bad employer. This is your boss. He's constantly on you. He's on your case, and you just have a hatred for this person. But you need the job, you need the income, and so you hold yourself from reacting, from coming out, from hitting back. And so you constantly suppress it. Now the issue here is that because you have not been able to reconcile that feeling or that emotion in a wakeful state, this ends up coming into your dream, and in the dream you actually see yourself, throttling this guy or beating him up. You're sort of play acting that moment that you could not reconcile in your wakeful state. And the reason this is happening is, it's on the one hand it's a good thing that it is rehealing itself. On the other hand, it's a bad thing because it is also indicative of showing you that you have an issue with your ghadab. You have an issue with your shahwa. The fact that you keep seeing yourself eating ice cream and you deprive yourself of ice cream in your wakeful state, there's an issue with your shahwa. The fact that you keep on desiring it. You need to fix that. There's a methodology that you would use to fix the shahwa. You need to fix your ghadab, and the way you do that is by the aql. If the aql is enhanced, If your mind is intellecting properly with good knowledge, with sound knowledge, and with hikmah, then you will be able to reconcile all these issues that you're going through in the real world, in the wakeful state, so that you don't have to experience them in your dreams and have your dreams overburden you. So in the case of where you're dealing with this cumbersome individual who is your boss and he's always on your tail, it's upon you to figure out how you're going to deal with him when he is breathing down your neck. Because if you're just going to take it and keep on taking it, then it's going to manifest in a negative way. And it will eventually bubble out, because there's only so much that you can handle, right? There's only so much that you can take. Even if it is coming in your dreams, it's eventually going to overpower you, and it will manifest in other ways. So people in that case will be having a hard time at work with their bosses, will often come home and will take that anger out on their family. They'll end up hitting the kids, they'll hit the wife. You see, it's going to manifest it somewhere else, because you're not able to take care of it at work. And if you suppress yourself in either of those two cases, it's going to manifest in a different way. And insanity will start coming out from that. So this is what he's saying here. فَيَكُونُ مِثْلَ الضَّوْءِ رُبَّمَا احْتَاجُ كَشْفَهُ إِلَى شَيْءٍ مِنْ تَعْبِيرِ الْأَحْلَامِ. What you see in your dreams is like a light. It is revealing unto you your inner reality. It's showing you what it is that's going on deep inside, irrespective of what's happening outside. Because you can brush aside the circumstance, but you didn't actually reconcile them. Well, the one thing that we often forget is that the anguish of the soul cannot be hidden. It can't be concealed. You can't just brush it under the carpet and forget about it. You have to deal with it. And how you deal with it makes all the difference in the world. So you getting these dreams is like a light. It's helping reveal what's in your heart. But it can also be, sometimes it requires interpretation. This is what you're seeing in your dream might be the reality of what's happening in your heart, but you're not able to understand that because you don't have the knowledge with which to interpret that. So you might just brush it off as something that, oh, okay, I just saw a dream of sorts, and then you forget about it. Whereas that was a revealing thing about you and your inner heart. So in some cases, you will need interpretation, but you have to be careful. Don't try to interpret your own dreams if you don't have any knowledge of interpreting them. And likewise, don't try to interpret someone else's dreams if you don't have any knowledge of it. وَأَمَّا مَا كَانَ مِنْ ظَاهِرِ فَيَظُنَّ النَّاسُ أَنَّ بِهِ الْيَقَظَةِ. As for the outward sense, because that was the dreams, as for the wakeful state, in the outward sense, people think that the wakeful state is the reality. They think that wakefulness is true consciousness. And so if you're awake, you're fully conscious. You're fully aware of everything that's happening. You're fully aware of true reality. وأن اليقظة أولى بالمعرفة مع أنه لا يبصر في اليقظة شيء من عالم الغيب. But that wakeful state is actually a dream world. When you're in a state of wakefulness, this is actually a dream world. The true reality is unveiled when you are asleep, because now you are in your natural habitat. When you're asleep, you're going to where you came from. Here you're only existent temporarily. So if you think that this is reality, it's not. This is just a dream. You're going to pass through this. That other reality that you're seeing, that is true reality. Right? Sleep actually wakes you up. A weird way of looking at it, that when you go to sleep is when you're actually awake. Because now you're fully conscious. You're fully exposed to the alam al-malakut. You're exposed to the alam al-mithal, the realm of where all the meaning of this reality comes from. Because this reality is just form. And it's got meaning attached to it that's unseen. But when you're in the sleep state, that's when you have an opening to the unseen realm. And so they think that the wakefulness is more deserving of knowledge and understanding. even though nothing of the unseen is revealed to them. They think that what they can touch and feel and on whatever and interact with, that's it. That's knowledge for us, right? They can go in and break it down to atomic level and subparticle level, and they think that they are getting more and more knowledge about it. They're not. All they're doing is just breaking it down into smaller and smaller particles. It's not giving them any more knowledge about the thing itself than the knowledge they got when they first saw the thing in its wholeness. They think that breaking things down in their particularities gives them more knowledge, whereas true knowledge is understanding things in their universal aspects. And that's where because this world of phenomena doesn't have universals. You can't see universals. How do you see a universal tree? What's the universal tree or the universal rock? Every rock is different from every other rock. Every tree is different from every other tree. Everything is different from every other thing of its own kind. You don't see the universality of it is what you understand in the unseen aspect. And it's from that world, the alam al-amr. That's where the universality is. So that's where true reality is unveiled for you. وَمَا يُبْصِرُ بَيْنَ النَّوْمِ وَالْيَقَظَةِ أُولَى بِالْمَعْرِفَةِ مِمَّا يُبْصِرُ مِنْ طَرِيقَ الْحَوَاسِ. And what is understood in this state of the in-between, it's not about sleep only, and it's not about wakefulness only. It's an in-between of the two, because remember, where is the human being placed? He's been placed in the middle of these two realms. This is that ayah that he began with in the first chapter. Sanurihim ayatina fil afaqi, in the horizon between the heavens and the earth. Wa fi anfusihim, and in themselves, because this is where the self is, in the in-between. So it's not entirely on this side only that you receive your knowledge and your understanding. And it's also not entirely in the dream state, because there are people who think that they get everything they need to know, whatever they need to know, they'll get it in their dreams. And it's also very crucial, because the ulama also say that what you see in your dreams, you should never make it as a hukum. If you see yourself doing an action in your dreams, you should not take it as a hukum. You can take it as fadail al-amal, for instance, but you cannot apply it as hukum. For instance, if you see yourself doing 1,000 tasbih of Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, 1,000 times, you cannot take that as hukum. Meaning, you can't bring that out and say, oh, I received revelation and everyone should do this, even if you're an ulama. If you want to do it, you can do it for yourself. That's fine. Allah has given it to you to do it, so you do it for yourself, but you cannot impose it upon others. So it's in this in-between where you get the true understanding, because you understand what's happening in the sensory world, and then you reconcile it with what you see in your dream state. So what you experienced in this world, and you see it in your dream, it gives you an indication that you have not actually dealt with this other portion of it. And this in-between is more deserving of your knowledge than only through your senses. This is a good question. People assume that a potential sign after istikhara happens in a dream. How is this reconciled with not interpreting dreams? Istikhara, this is something that people, the ulama have already spoken about, and I'm surprised that a lot of people, I still see people asking these questions. If they're supposed to see a sign after istikhara. Istikhara doesn't mean that you see a sign. Istikhara is really a moment of surrender, in that you make the dua of istikhara and you're asking Allah that what I'm about to do, if there's khair in it, let it be for me. If there is shar in it, if there is something wrong, bad for me, remove it from my path and give me something better. What you're doing here is that you're saying, and this is language expressing, it's not just words that you're throwing out of your mouth, just reciting, or recite the dua of istikhara, everything will be fine. It doesn't work like that. What do you mean by that recitation? What are you expressing from your heart? What you're saying is that I have done my homework, I have done my investigation, I looked through all the possibilities. I looked at the advantages and disadvantages, and now I want to make this decision. So, oh Allah, I'm surrendering this portion to you. If it is beneficial for me, give it to me. If not, remove it from my path. The manifestation of it, if your dua is sincere, the manifestation of it will happen if it's good for you, and it will be removed from your path if it's bad for you. This idea that people are looking for some sort of a sign, or they'll get a dream. Some people do, actually. I've heard some cases where people do get a good dream in which they see an outcome, but very rare case. And this is Allah choosing whom He wants to reveal what. But the ulama say it's better not to get into that category, because those select few individuals who are actually chosen, and Allah is fa'alun lima yurid. He can do whatever He wants to do with whomever He wants to do it. But for the general population, don't even get into that mode of thinking, because you are now shifting your focus of your attention of your trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to some sort of a sign in a dream. You're not actually putting your trust in Him, you're putting your trust in a dream or a sign of sorts that will tell you whether or not you should do what you should do. I hope that answered the question. Okay, all right. Is there any other question on that section?
Imam Al-Ghazali, he had knowledge of philosophy and all these things, but how did the Sahaba get to such a high level of understanding? Is it because they knew the Arabic of the Quran? Is that simply it?
Well, the Arabic of the Quran is the language that they spoke at the time. So understanding came to them much easier than later generations. Plus, the ulama say that time is a paradigm shift. The closer you are to the revelation, the better your understanding. So we have a much more difficult time understanding it because we are much further away from the source of revelation. Our language has changed drastically. So we speak today in some sort of I don't know what we speak today, honestly. It's almost disgusting when we think about the way we speak compared to the way they spoke at the time. But because of the purity of direct understanding, that's number one. Number two, much of what the Prophet ﷺ was receiving, he was also explaining. Whether he was explaining verbally or he was explaining through action, it was easily understood by the Sahaba at the time, and they would ask questions for clarification and so on. Then you had scholars at that time as well, but the kind of scholarship that they had was not what we perceive to be today, like classroom and so on and so forth. The student would adhere to the teacher in almost like glue. They would stay with the teacher, they would serve the teacher, and he would teach them not just what's in the text, but also through action. So they sort of imbibed that language, that body language, and that environment with it. And so the understanding also came with it. And because of their practice and the sincerity of the practice, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them a greater unveiling than He would give us in this case, comparatively. And this is why we are reliant on the chain of transmission for our authenticity. This is in epistemology where you build the foundation being the Quran and the Hadith and then the scholarly works and so on, right? We're reliant on the chain of transmission. So we go backwards and look at we would look at what is the Quran saying? Okay, then we have an understanding of the language as we study the sciences of the language. And then we'll look, okay, what the Hadith is saying. And then what are the scholars saying? And then what are the contemporary scholars saying? And then what do I think? That's like the chain of transmission of authenticating that understanding. The philosophy and the subject knowledge in our tradition came much later on, where now as Islam was expanding, you had all these other ideologies coming in from different areas. Like the Persians came in with their own understanding of theology. Christians would come in with their own understanding. So there had to be some sort of reconciliation taking place. So subject knowledge had to be developed. So even with the language sciences, grammar was something developed later on. It was developed during the time of Imam Ali. Abul Hasan ad-Duali is attributed in our history as the man who developed the science of grammar in our tradition.
What was the list you said? The Quran, the Hadith. Can you go through that again?
Or the foundation. So Quran, Hadith, and then what do the earliest Sahabas? What is their position, and then the scholars as they follow. So if you look at the Mufassirin, a lot of Mufassirin they'll look at the ayah, they'll give a linguistic explanation, and then to back that linguistic explanation, they will say what the Prophet said. If there is a hadith that explains the ayah, they'll say what that says. And then they'll say what maybe Umar or Abu Bakr or Ali or Uthman or anybody else in that immediate environment said. And then they will say what...
He said what the immediate people around him thought.
Yeah, what the immediate circle, his closest companions said. And then the next generation after that would be the Tabi'een. So like the group of like Ibn Abbas, Mujaddid, Abdul Aziz ibn Umar, right? That's the next generation. And then you've got the following generation of scholars who preceded, like Imam Malik preceded, so the people whom Imam Malik learned from, for instance, whom Abu Hanifa learned from. And then you've got now this generation of the four Imams in our Sunni, in the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. These are now essentially the borders of those three generations. They're considered like the last ones. And so everybody follows that chain of transmission in the line of scholars. So the Malikis will follow that chain of transmission, and then the Hanafis will follow that chain of transmission like that.
Now, you explained this before a lot of times actually, but now I'm seeing the importance of following the previous scholars. Now I see.
Yeah. So you would look at Ghazali's work and you could trust Ghazali's work because of his teachers and his teachers learning from their teachers. So Imam Al-Ghazali's main teacher was Imam Al-Haramain, the Imam of the two mosques, Imam Al-Juwayni, who was renowned for his scholarship. So you can trust his scholarship. And then he studied with his teacher and he studied with his teacher. And Imam Al-Ghazali was a Shafi'i scholar, so his chain of transmission is like that. And then Imam Shafi'i studied with Imam Malik, so there's another chain of transmission there. And then Imam Malik studied with Nafi', so there's a chain of transmission there. Now Nafi' is also attributed with the Quran transmission as well. So the most, yes, it's the knowledge as it's handed down. Like in our tradition, we believe that knowledge is handed down, transmitted orally. In the Western epistemics, they don't believe in that. They believe each generation just figures stuff out by themselves. Everyone comes in a blank slate, and then they accumulate whatever their senses pick up, and then they just build it accordingly. But we believe in the chain of transmission because the chain of transmission, like for when with Imam Malik, who studied from Nafi' he of Medina. You get the Qalun narrative, the Qalun recital, Qira, and then you get the Warsh, which is most dominant in North Africa. And Imam Malik considered his recitation to be Sunnah recitation because it followed the dialect of the Quraysh. But Imam Nafi' was also a servant in the household of Ibn Umar al-Khattab's son. So there's that chain of transmission there, right? And then Ibn Umar studied from his father, Umar al-Khattab, who studied from the Prophet, who received revelation from Jibreel, who brought it down from Allah. So that's a chain of transmission that is authentic, you would say. So we are reliant on that transmission of knowledge, and that's how we validate the truth of what we understand. So I can look at an ayah, for example, of the Quran, and I feel like this is what it means. I can make one of two choices. I can propagate what it means based on my own intellect, or I can look and see if the tradition says the same thing or similar. And that will help me with the coherency of truth, whether or not my understanding was correct. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay, there's just this one section that I want to do, because then we'll go into a different section after that. So the previous one was on dreams. So he says, وَتَحْتَاجُ أَن تَعْرِفَ فِي ضِمْنِ ذَلِكَ أَنَّ الْقَلْبَ مِثْلَ الْمِرْآةِ. This is a very important section. So pay close attention to this. He's saying it's important that you know concerning this matter. And in the previous section, when he was talking about what you're receiving from your dreams, right? It's important that you understand that the heart is like a mirror. وَاللَّوْحِ الْمَحْفُوظ مِثْلَ الْمِرْآةِ أيضا. The Lawhil Mahfudh is also a mirror. لِأَنَّ فِيهِ سُورَةَ كُلِّ مَوْجُودٍ. Because in the Lawhil Mahfudh, everything that is in existence, you can find it on the Lawhil Mahfudh, right? Everything. So Allah documented everything before He brought it all into existence, right? So everything that's in existence, you'll find it on the Lawhil Mahfudh, including your heart, including yourself. وَإِذَا قَابِلَتَ الْمِرْآةِ بِمِرْآةِ أُخْرَى حَلَّتْ سُورَ مَا فِي إِحْدَاهُمَا فِي الْأُخْرَى. So what he's saying is, if you put one mirror in front of another mirror, then this one will reflect what's in the other one, right? It's like, you've seen that, like when you go into an elevator. It's a very strange phenomena that happens. One mirror is reflecting what's in the other mirror. So what he's saying is that when you align yourself with what's in the Lawhil Mahfudh, then you will understand, because you can't see yourself. You can't see yourself except in a mirror, and what you're seeing is a reflection. So what you want to see in the inward sense is a reflection of you, to understand who you are. وَكَذَلِكَ تَظْهَرُ صُوَرُ مَا فِي اللَّوْحِ الْمَحْفُوظِ إِلَى الْقَلْبِ إِذَا كَانَ فَارِغًا مِنْ شَهَوَاتِ الدُّنْيَا. So likewise, what is in the Lawhil Mahfudh is only going to appear to you when you are empty of the desires of this world. If you're filled with the desire of this world, then you're distracted. You're not able to see what's really been ordained for you, what your true destiny is, so to speak, right? Who you really are is written in the Lawhil Mahfudh. What you're seeing out here in this world is not who you really are. It's a distraction. It's just an allure. فَإِنْ كَانَ مَشْغُولًا بِهَا كَانَ عَالَمَ الْمَلَكُوتِ مَحْجُوبًا عَنْهُ. But then if you are preoccupied with this world, then the Alam al-Malakut will be veiled to you. And this is the deal with a lot of people. They cannot experience a higher reality because they're so preoccupied with what's happening here. What's happening in politics, with the politics and the drama and the theatrics. And it's more pronounced in our age and time. And this is something that when we go into like eschatology, why is having an eschatology important? Is because it enables us to recognize and understand the complexity of the drama and the politics and the fitna. It enables us to recognize and distinguish what is what. What are the things that we do need to be concerned about? And then what are the things that are keeping us distracted and preoccupied? Because this is the state of the world today. This is where most people are. All they can talk about is football. all they can talk about is basketball. All they can talk about is politics. That's all they can talk about. This is their preoccupation. It might be an intellectual conversation, maybe, but is this what you really want to talk about? Is this where because if you're preoccupied with this, how do you expect to understand the true reality? The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, profound hadith in Imam Nawawi's collection, min husni islamil mar'i tarkuhu ma la ya'ni. From the beauty, from the perfection of an individual's Islam is him leaving that which does not concern him. That's from the beauty of your religion, from your Islam, is leaving that which does not concern you. You see, getting involved with matters that don't concern you. These are what keep you preoccupied because your time is precious, right? This is the only commodity you have. And you want to exchange that time to talk about, who did what and where and why. It doesn't concern you.
What about like you're driving somewhere, you're driving home, and then you see like a homeless person asking for money. Some people say, you shouldn't give them because they're just going to use it for drugs, blah, blah. And then part of me is thinking what you're saying right now, like, it doesn't concern me. But part of it is like, oh, it does concern me because Allah says, give out, or, what He provided of you, beginning of Al-Baqarah. So, like, and then there's other people like, Muslims who who, is falling down the wrong path, and you want to help them, and you get involved with them, try to help them and stuff. Like, is that things that do not concern you, or is it like
those are the semantics that you would evaluate circumstantially. Yes, there are people who are homeless and they are in genuine dire need of help, right? Definitely. But there are also those who just are pretend beggars because they actually earn, and this is a reality, this is truth. They've documented these cases where these people, they earn more than they would earn working, so they pretend to be beggars and stuff, and they just mint your money. So how do you evaluate? How do you know who is genuine, who is not? It's tricky, right? So again, I would say this falls on your niyyah. If you're genuinely willing to help someone, and that's all you were concerned about is helping someone, and you gave them money, then whatever they did with that money, that's upon them. You will get your reward for it. Your concern in that moment was just to help someone in need. So that's something that does concern you, right? Yeah. That's how I would evaluate this. And I know what you're talking about, because where I come from, this used to happen every Jummah outside the masjid, because so many people would come to the masjid. They would just be like beggars all over the place. And they would come from across the city, across town if they had to. Why? Because they know that Muslims are generous, they'll give. Some of them are pretend beggars, some of them are genuine. How do you know who is who? Well, you've just finished praying Jummah, your heart is clean, your intention is clean, and you just give, and Allah put blessing in that for them and for you. That's and that concerns you because that's your obligation. You have to help others. فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. This is the commandment in the Quran. Don't chase away the orphan. Help him. Yeah.
But what about like Muslims you knew, or you knew their father, but now they're like stricken with addiction or drugs, or like the whole community knows they're doing bad, and no one wants to help them. Like, is it a good thing that you're trying to help them, or is it bad because then you're seen with them and then your reputation goes down, blah blah blah? Like, what is those?
Again, that's where you would evaluate with hikmah, right? Because the hikmah that you use, if you're intelligently enough to evaluate the situation, and you make the right decision and ensure that your niyyah is correct, your intention is right, that you genuinely want to help someone, whatever the situation might be a controversial case, a scandalous thing, you genuinely want to help. If you're going to be concerned that what are people going to think, then you've already lost. that position, right? Because now your concern has shifted from what needs to be done to what other people will think. So right there, you're already concerning yourself with something that doesn't concern you, because what other people think doesn't concern you. Get it? Yeah. Okay, so he says, right, so وَإِنْ كَانَ فِي حَالِ النَّوْمِ فَارِغًا مِنْ عَلَائِكَ الْحَوَاسِ طَالَعَ جَوَاهِرَ عَالَمَ الْمَلَكُوتِ فظهر فيه بعد الصور التي في اللوح المحفوظ. But if in the sleep state, because in the sleep state you are empty. If you go into your sleep state empty or void of sensory attachments, you go to sleep, but now you've detached from the sensory world. You've gone in with a clean slate, so you've emptied yourself, you've cleared your thoughts, and you're going to sleep sound with a clear-cut understanding that you might not even wake up. If you're going in with that sort of a mentality, then you will be able to see the pearls that come from the Alam al-Malakut. In other words, if you're going into sleep with worldly affiliations and you're tied to the desires of the dunya, to things that don't concern you, you're taking that baggage with you, and then you're expecting revelation or enlightenment, it's not going to happen. You can't be sitting on the fence. Remember, you can't be and not be at the same time. You can't be a righteous person and a sinner at the same time. You're either righteous or you're a sinner, right? And if you're righteous and you sin, then your righteousness enables you to overcome that sin, because you know, I made a mistake, I need to seek tawbah. That's the position of a righteous person. There's no sitting on the fence. And so فَظَهَرَ فِيهِ بَعْدَ الصُّوَرِ الَّتِي فِي اللَّوْحِ الْمَحْفُوظِ. You will be able to see some of the meanings that are being revealed to you from the Lawhil Mahfudh. Now, this is also important to know, because there are veilings. The first and foremost veil is the veil of the senses. So he's showing you here how to break that veil. How to break the veil of the senses by recognizing their proper place and what their purpose is. Once you understand that, then you know where they stand and how to deal with the senses as they come into conflict with your thought and thinking process. The second veil is the veil of the imagination, because the imaginative faculty that you have is also a veil. So he says, وَإِذَا أَغْلَقَ بَابَ الْحَوَاسِ كَانَ بَعْدُهُ الْخَيَالِ. So after the door of the senses is closed, what comes next is the khayal, the imaginative faculty, the thoughts. So, like how when you close your eyes and you're able to think, that's essentially what he's talking about. You close your eyes and now you're able to think and focus on some certain aspects. When they're open, there are too many distractions. So you close off the door of the senses. Then you are now dealing with the imaginative. But the imaginative faculty is also a veil. It has a limitation. And imagination can go two ways. If proper intellection is done, then the imagination will help you understand what you cannot see with your senses. But that imagination can also go towards the fictional side and the phantasmal side. So you have to be careful here also. لذلك يكون الذي يبصره تحت ستر القشر. What you will see after the door of the senses is closed, through the imagination, you will see what is under the veil of the externalities. That's your thoughts. You're able to see what's under the externalities. So you look at an object, your eyes can see the outward, your thoughts are thinking about its inward. You're trying to understand its reality. So the thoughts, the khayal, they understand what's beneath the veil of the externalities. وَلَيْسَ كَالْحَقِّ الصَّرِيحَ مَكْشُوفَ. But even then, the clear truth, the candid truth, the true reality is still not unveiled to you. Why? Because you are still in this world. You're still in this world, the lowest of the low. فَإِذَا مَاتَ أي القلب. So when it dies, yani the heart, بِمَوْتٍ صَاحِبِهِ, through the death of its owner, so you're actually dead, really dead, right? Your time has come to an end. لَمْ يَبْقَى خَيَالٌ وَلَا حَوَاسٌ. The senses and the imagination are no more. Those two veils have now been removed. وَفِي ذَلِكَ الْوَقْتِ يُبْصِرُ بِغَيْرِ وَهْمِ وَغَيْرِ خَيَالٍ. At that time now, you will be able to see without the whims and the illusions and the delusions and the imaginations and all those things. وَيُقَالَ لَهُ, as Allah says about that, فَكَشَفْنَا عَنْكَ غِطَاءَكَ فَبَصَرُكَ الْيَوْمَ حَدِيدٌ. On this day, we have removed the veil. We have removed you from your veilings, from your cover, so that your sight on this day is sharp. And that's the section on the mirror. The heart is a mirror. If it is properly aligned to revelation, then it will reflect what is in revelation. If it is off basis, and that's entirely based on you and what state you want to be in your wakeful aspect and in your sleep aspect. What state do you want to go in? You know, when they say you should never go to bed angry, that's a state. You're going into bed in an angry state, and that's going to reflect in your dreams. It will prevent you from receiving that which will enable you to reconcile yourself, to heal yourself, to perfect and better yourself. Likewise, in the wakeful state, if you don't deal with your problems in the right way, in the hikmah way, then it's going to manifest in all sorts of absurdities. It's going to affect you. The dreams are a very beautiful thing. In the Quran, Allah says in Surah Yunus, أَلَا إِنَّ أَوْلِيَاءَ اللَّهِ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَهُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. For Allah, verily, His awliya, there's no fear in their hearts. They're not afraid. They don't get scared. They don't grieve. They don't despair. These are the awliya of Allah. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ. They are those who believe and they are conscious of Allah. They have taqwa of Allah. Their iman is what holds them together. لَهُمُ الْبُشْرَى فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. For them are glad tidings, bushra, in this life of this world and then in the other life of the other world as well. لا تبديل لكلمات الله. There is no change in the word of Allah. ذلك هو الفوز العظيم. That is the supreme triumph, the highest achievement. Imam Malik in his Muwatta, he records Urwa bin Zubair used to say about this ayah, Bushra fil hayati dunya wal akhirah, that this means that they will receive glad tidings in this world as well as in the hereafter. It means good dreams, which an individual would see either for themselves or even see for others. And Imam At-Tabari also said that Bushra means good dreams. That this dream that you receive in a state of tranquility, in a good state, in a good hal, wherein you are not perturbed by what's external, and you enter into your sleep in a clean state, clean meaning clean heart state, then this dream would be a true dream, which would be one of the 46 parts of prophethood. And just to finish up, I'm remembering a poem by Khalil Gibran. He said, in the depths of your hopes and desires lies your silent knowledge of the beyond. And like seeds dreaming beneath the snow, your heart dreams of spring. Trust the dreams, for in them is hidden the gateway to eternity. That is the gateway to your heart. Let's end there for the night. Is there any question?
Can you repeat that last thing you said? The depths of your hopes and desires?
The poem?
Yeah.
It's by Khalil Gibran. In the depths of your hopes and desires lies your silent knowledge of the beyond. and like seeds dreaming beneath the snow. Like he's saying when it's winter, the seeds don't come out, they're asleep. So just like the seeds that are dreaming beneath the snow, your heart is also dreaming of spring, of an eternity, of that happiness of spring. So trust the dreams, for in them is hidden the gateway to eternity. Time travel, when they talk about time travel, they usually talk about time travel in the sci-fi kind of mode, where you actually physically go somewhere in time. But if you think about it in a more profound sense, you find that you can actually travel through time, because your memories take you back in time, and your dreams take you forward in time. And what you do now, in this present moment, what you do now and how you establish yourself now, and how you understand your being in this moment, will determine the destination of both. Because it will determine your forward direction in your dreams. And when you move forward in time and you want to travel back in memory, you will be able to go back to a memory that you made consciously. And it will be a pleasant memory because you are consciously aware of your being in that moment. So memories take you back in time. Dreams take you forward in time into the future. What you do now in the present moment will determine the destiny of both.
So Allah says to keep steadfast, because if you're steadfast and you're keeping your heart clean, then where else are you going to end up except success?
That's right.
When you allow yourself to turn and sin, and you're going to sleep with that disease, and then this was a good lesson. What's next?
Next, he's going to talk a little bit more about the Alam al-Malakut and how the heart interacts with the Alam al-Malakut. It's quite a lengthy section. And then he's going to talk about being, the essence of being. To be, what does it mean to be? Like, you're existent. How do you bring that profound thought into your mind? That you're being, you're alive, you're existent. Just think about that for a moment. It's just amazing. If you just think about it, your being.
How is it that the Kafirun, they know this knowledge of the world exists in these books, or don't they? Like, what if they figure out that one Muslim is gonna, he's gonna attain all the knowledge of the previous scholars, and then, they're gonna try to kill you.
Well, I mean, it depends on what they do with that knowledge. Like, they've translated all these things, but then how have they understood that? That's what makes the difference. There are many translations of this text of Ghazali's, but if you read them, they just sound like rubbish. They completely focus on esoterics and mysticism and fantasism and all these things. That's not what he's talking about. He's not talking about fantasies. He's giving you truth in a sense.
Is he speaking with, because you said, about you study the Quranic Arabic. So what kind of Arabic is he, because you said you translated it, right?
Well, I translated this. But he's speaking that Arabic because that Arabic is what you would study as Al-Fusha. There was an interesting lecture I heard of Dr. Omar Al-Faruq. He said he was in Syria or in Egypt or somewhere. And he got into a taxi and he told the taxi driver in Arabic, أريد أن أذهب إلى he said something, he wanted to go from somewhere to somewhere else. So he was telling the taxi driver where to go, but he was speaking classical Arabic, and the taxi driver actually said Sadaqallahu al-Azim, because he thought he was reciting an ayah of the Quran. he didn't understand. All he was saying was he was saying it in pure Arabic. أريد أن أذهب إلى some place, and then minal some place, and then إلى some other place. And he thought he was reciting an ayah of the Quran. But this is the issue with linguistics today, is that we've turned language into slang. And this is why a lot of people can't understand what these scholars wrote and how they spoke.
So even the regular Arabic speakers in countries today, they can't understand the Quranic Arabic?
They can't. A lot of them, they can't. Like they'll be sitting they'll be listening to the recitation, but it doesn't get into their head.
So what is the best way to learn?
The Arabic?
Yeah,
It's to learn Al-Fusha, which is very complicated. I mean, you're talking about years of... Al-Fusha is classical Arabic. It's like you go and learn Shakespearean English just so you can understand Shakespeare's works, right? And you can't apply modern English to Shakespeare and hope to understand what Shakespeare is talking about. You need to study Shakespearean English, classical English, to understand that.
I was just at the Yemeni corner store getting food, and then we just talked about learning Arabic. And then now, after this class, I really, really want to learn it now. Now it's like, I have to.
Oh, everyone has to. And you know what's interesting about it is it feels like it's a daunting experience. And Hamza will affirm this because he's more proficient than I am. It seems daunting in the first instance because you're just bombarded with something you have no clue about. But the beautiful thing is that the more you learn, the easier it becomes, right? Because the more you learn, the less you have to learn. And even though it takes a long time to master Arabic, you can at least acquire a basic understanding of the language that you can apply to an understanding of the Quran. So that even in your own mode, when you're reading, you recite the Quran, you can at least understand what's being said. And that brings you more closer to the Quran because of the speech of Allah. Like you're understanding the speech of your Lord, you become more intimate with that. Yeah. So if you get even like, if you just get, let's say you just learn what hada means in many instances, because hada is one of the most common words. It's an ismu ishara. And you understand what its variants mean, like dhalika, hadihi, hiya, huwa, all these ismu ishara. That alone will help you understand what's being referred to in the context of an ayah.
See, I also wanted to say that in terms of learning Arabic, like you said, it's very simple. If you just, all you have to do is acquire 20% of the speaking Arabic, for example, much like hada and a few other words like that. And basically you use that as your tool to acquire more. Yeah.
You just build on like a step ladder, you just like a foundation. It's foundationalism, right? You just build on the foundation. Yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing is that, see, I want to say in all full disclosure, speaking wise, alhamdulillah, I find myself more proficient. But see, in terms of the actual Arabic texts and stuff like that, you're more proficient than I am.
Alhamdulillah.
I just wanted to make sure that's clear.
Alhamdulillah, astaghfirullah, alhamdulillah. I think everybody has their unique strengths and they also have their unique weaknesses. And this is how we complement each other. This is essentially how we complement each other, because everyone has something to bring to the table, and that's a collective effort. Knowledge is a collective effort, right? This is what the Prophet says in that hadith. People gather in the houses of Allah, yatluna kitab Allah wa yatadarasunahu bainahum. They study it together, right? It's not an individual study, because everyone has a unique piece to contribute to that study. And then collectively they understand something much better. So alhamdulillah, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. But it's not difficult to learn Arabic language, to be honest. And you know what? I find a lot of Muslims who don't make the effort have got no excuse whatsoever. In the past, maybe, you would say, oh, I need to go to an Arab country to learn Arabic because that's where the Arabs are. But honestly, with the technology and everything that we have, there's a lot of free resources. There are tons of Arabic courses online that are just for free. And there's a lot of material online that's for free. Seekers Academy has a full program to advanced level Arabic for free, all of it for free.
You know, see, the other funny thing is that if a person goes, if they had good Arabic and they go to an Arab country,
They'll get worse.
They'll get worse.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah, they'll get worse. I've seen that happening.
You go there, you're trying to learn proficient, proper Arabic, and I would say, you know, in terms of learning Arabic, it's incumbent upon every single Muslim.
It is.
They learn the minimum, the absolute minimum is learning to read the Quran, right? And you know,
It is incumbent on every Muslim. Ibn Taymiyyah said, this is Ibn Taymiyyah, right? A majority of people at least accept fatwa from Ibn Taymiyyah when he says it. It's not whatever. He said, إِنَّ اللُّغَةَ الْعَرَبِيَّةَ مِنَ الدِّينِ وَمَعْرِفَتُهَا فَرْضٌ وَوَاجِبٌ فإن فهم الكتاب والسنة فرض ولا يفهم إلا باللغة العربية وما يتم الواجب إلا به فهو واجب. He said it is wajib. He didn't say it's optional. He said it's wajib for you to learn the Arabic language, because without the Arabic language you cannot understand Kitab and Sunnah. And if Kitab and Sunnah is wajib on you, then every instrument required to learn that is wajib as well. Anyway, let's end here for the night, inshallah. There's like 30 seconds left on the clock. Subhanaka wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين بارك الله فيكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah. See you guys next session.